This episode of the Citadel Cafe is brought to you by listeners like you. Visit patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe to find out how you can become a patron and help make this show possible. This is the Citadel Cafe, episode number 368 for Friday, July 31st, 2020. My name is Joel Duggan, and the Citadel Cafe is where my friends and I hang out to talk about the geeky stuff that we are into. Joining me this week is Mr. Ryan Murphy from The Gamers Inn, Zombies Ate My Podcast, and is it Dads and
Ooh,
Diapers?
it's close.
Oh, it's close. What's the other one? You do so
It's
many.
Dungeons and Diapers.
Dungeons and Diapers. I knew there was diapers in there somewhere, and it was about dads. But yeah. Okay. Cool.
Well, the
Dungeons and
acronym is
Diapers.
DAD, right?
Yeah.
So it works.
There you go.
You're very close. Yeah. It's good to be back. I would. You know what I forgot to do? I forgot to do my normal check of when the last time I was on.
I did it for you. It was the Christmas episode.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Wow.
We did the decade in geekdom. There was a bunch of us all on the show talking about the last 10 years and what kind of stood out over the last 10 years, because it was the 2019 into 2020 sort of like 10-year of nerddom, and especially because Avengers Endgame had just ended, and that was also that couldn't have been episode 300, because that would have been more than a year ago. But anyway, it was the Christmas episode. Was the last time you were on.
Yeah, if Christmas feels like years ago.
Oh my god, right? It's just 2020. It's like, and on one hand, holy crap, tomorrow is August.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, it's just like, how has it only been a few months, of a global pandemic, and I mean everything else that's going on, and you just feel like it's just been ages, and yet it's only been 6 months, not even, well, 6 months really, roughly, in our region in Canada. I'd say about 6 months of serious, dealing with COVID-19. But yeah, we don't talk about too much on the show, but I've definitely developed some new habits. I'm consuming a metric ton of media, but not the normal stuff that I do. I can't seem to sit down for a full movie. I can't seem to really get into much unless it's like a YouTube video. Like it has to be absolutely inconsequential if I stop it and turn it off and have to go do something else. I'm not watching a lot of story related stuff. I'm watching a lot of content, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but it's mostly other, like, new media, I guess would be the best way to describe it. But I've also, and I know that we don't normally talk about weather at the top of the show because it's a no-no, but there's a heat wave. Certainly, I think you guys are getting some in Ontario, but also here, which is unseasonal for us. We've had heat waves around this time of year for the last few years, but it very seldom gets into the 40 range with the humidex, and we've had that for several days in a row. And like, it's such a different experience, because the last time I was in 40 degrees, which I have experienced before, was 3 years ago in Utah. But I was in the desert, like in July, not Canada, like not experiencing, and not the prairies, like not experiencing normal weather for the situation. But I woke up the other morning, and being on the coast, as I am, very often the humidex is between 90 and 100%. So you get up and you just kind of go, buh, again. And then, I mean, I've been using AC because otherwise I would just be dead. But it does make a few things challenging, like podcasting and doing other things with radio, or not radio, but with microphones and recording stuff. So I haven't been able to record any video related content or audio related content for the week, because it's been a blitz. But that's basically kind of what I've been up to. I felt and feel slow, and I think the heat just kind of slows everyone down. How, like, you've been at home for a while now, haven't you?
Yeah, so I've been home since the end of March, although a little bit earlier, just with the COVID-19. They basically sent everyone who could work from home. But then Isabel, my third child, was born at the end of March, or as fiscally focused folks like to say, end of fiscal. We did not put that on the birth certificate, in case anyone's wondering. Um, that's a bad that's a bad boring people joke, and accountants, you'll understand that reference. But that's terrible. I don't know why I said that. I'm a father of three, so I have to make like a dad joke once every couple minutes, I think. So
Yeah,
I
that's
think
the
I'm
quota,
ahead.
right? Yeah, you're ahead for now.
Yeah, I'm ahead for now, and I think I'll keep it there. We'll move forward from there. But no, I've been home for quite a while. I've been home since the end of March. I'm on parental leave, which is fantastic. I know when I talk to our American friends, depending on who you talk to, if you tell them you've got 9 months of parental leave, they wonder, are you even working? How can you be home for 9 months straight? And other folks, 9 months is kind of unheard of outside of well, actually, not outside of Canada. There are plenty of countries that offer that, but our closest neighbor does not,
No,
which as often leads to some interesting conversations when you compare sort of what we have access to here as opposed to our closest neighbor to the south. So yeah, I've been at home taking care of not necessarily as much as the newest child Isabel. I've been mostly wrangling Caden and Abigail, and Caden being 4, and Abigail just coming up on 3 in about a month. They are at a very rambunctious age where they are running around and screaming and not understanding what, "Shh, you need to be quiet, the baby is trying to sleep," you know.
right.
So my job is keeping them busy and fed and occupied, and not harming the small infant as much as possible, where possible, I should say. It's one of those things where chasing two kids, sometimes they divide and conquer, sometimes you're able to you know get them interested in a thing all at the same time. So I've been spending a lot of time just running around with the kids and just helping out where I can, so it's
Nice.
been good.
Nice. I saw some backyard work too was going on
Yeah.
earlier.
Yeah, it's been a busy couple years. So when we bought this place where we're living now, we walked into the house, and the landlord, or not the landlord, the real estate agent said, like, "Look, you're gonna love everything about this house except for one thing. Just know that it's not a deal breaker, even though you're going to say it is, but like you got to say yes to this place because it's a stellar deal." And this was right at the point when the housing market was shooting through the roof here in Peterborough. Like everything was going up, and we were going to be able to buy this at a normal price. The only problem was it had a pool in the backyard. Literally, the backyard was a pool. You had a little bit of like sort of walking room for a patio and a patio set and a barbecue, and then the rest of the backyard was pool. And to a lot of folks, especially after the 40-degree weather with Humidex talk we just had earlier, would say, "Why? That sounds great, a giant pool that you can jump into." I find most people who say that have never taken care of a pool. It's especially one that is older than you are, and by you, I mean me. I
Hmm.
had a conversation today, like, it was 30 plus years old, that pool, and, we got rid of it. Which was a huge undertaking. I don't envy people who work in construction, but we had to take apart this pool, drain it, take it apart, bulldoze, or not bulldoze, but jackhammer the bottom so the water would leak out. And then over a process of a year and a half, we filled it with sand, we put dirt down, and then this summer we finally got around to laying sod, which is not a fun endeavor, especially when you have small children, trying to keep them off of it for
Right.
the 2 weeks you need to water it. But yeah, we laid sod. We put together a smaller pool for the kids, and this is the big deal. Like, we couldn't have the kids in the backyard. They couldn't walk outside
Yeah.
because as soon as they did, if they fell in that pool, you know, you would have to dive in after them. Like, it's just it's a death trap, really.
Hmm.
Especially when the bigger pools, they have a small shallow end, yes, but like most of it is 8 foot deep, 12 foot deep stuff.
And
And
the shallow end is still going to be over the head of a 4-year-old.
exactly. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. And even the shallow end, like, is one of those things where, let's say someone does go into the shallow end, it was a steep decline into the deep end. Like, even I had been caught off guard by it a couple times
Right.
when we were using the pool. And and it was leaking, and in-ground pools, if you try to find a leak in that thing, you're either going to cause more damage or find the problem, and it's going to cost a crazy amount of money, to the point where it's probably better to tear it out and put a new one in.
Mm-hmm.
So we got rid of it, and honestly, just the ability to use our backyard. We put a play structure in. We have a small little pool we bought for like $100 that's inflatable, and the kids love it because they can swim in it with their floaties by themselves, and they stand up and they're not underwater, so that's fantastic. So we've been really enjoying it, and with COVID-19 going on, we until recently you weren't allowed to go to parks, you weren't allowed to play on the play structures,
Right.
and for kids, they understood it, they didn't like it, they
No.
really love the play structures, but
Yeah.
yeah, so we've it's for about a month, Ashley and I would go out, and one of us would be taking care of Isabel while the other two are running around on the play structure, and you just sit there and you'd be like, "Man, I'm so glad we did this because I couldn't." We went to one play structure once they opened up just last week, and it was hand sanitizer in the breast pocket for me, and I'm chasing the kids around yelling, "Don't touch your face, don't touch your
Mm-hmm.
face."
Yeah.
And then every time they leave a structure, "All right, here's a squirt, here's a squirt."
Mm-hmm.
It's not fun. So we have our own structure that they can play on, and they really like it. And and I would never want to build one again. Someone was joking, like, "So you're going to go into the business?" I'm like, "No, these things suck. They're
Yeah.
so hard to put together." Like,
I,
people joke about instruction manuals. These are very detailed at the beginning that gives you confidence that you're going to be able to build this thing. And then like halfway through the instructions, they just like, "I don't know, look at the picture and kind of put these things together and you should be fine." I'm like, "No, I prefer the details instructions you had at the beginning. Now I have a half-built structure and I don't know how to build this like roof thing. It's all falling apart now." And oh man, it was
yeah.
frustrating.
Yeah, I remember when we were kids, we had a metal. It was all metal play set
Mm.
in the backyard. Couple swings, slide. I think there was maybe some monkey bars or something at some point. I distinctly remember falling off the monkey bars and bashing my head off of them.
Oh no.
But not like in a injury way, just kind of like in a the kind of thing that just kind of shocks you as a kid. You're not really
Yeah.
hurt. You're just kind of scared by the back. I mean, it's not pleasant. I mean, hitting your head has a very distinct feeling to it. But I remember, and it was like I remember Dad putting it together, which is a weird memory to have. Come back hearing you talk about this, but like it was just all these like screws and nuts and like nothing on it was plastic or it was all metal. We're talking mid '80s and I mean, like the thing was a death trap. Like it was a quote unquote play structure, but everything was like, oh, this is pointy. This is an exposed, nut and bolt. Don't catch your head on that. Like stuff like that. It's just, yeah, putting that stuff together is never fun. But that sounds, it's nice that you guys are doing something with a backyard. I don't have one. I have one I can look at. It's not something I can actually use. It's just a courtyard in the back of the building. It's all grass, lots of leafy trees, but I've noticed with the interest rates lately, many of my friends and or just peer group, just people I used to work with, just people you're still kind of friends with on Instagram, that sort of thing, are buying houses like left, right, and center,
Hmm.
including my sister. They bought a house and closed the deal a month ago and moved in last week. And so, I mean, I've already said it, but like, congrats to them because it's a fantastic home for them. It's just the right size and they paid a little bit more than they thought they were going to, but they also have like metal roof, fiberglass oil tank. Like there's all these different things that just made it a very smart investment. And they had 36 hours to make up their mind. That's how fast the houses are going around here.
Oh wow.
It's bananas. It's a seller's market, but the interest rates are really low. So really, if you are in the position to own, then it's a really good time to do it. But all this kind of like home ownership posts on Facebook and Instagram, it's got me thinking about how nice it would be to have my own backyard. Now, I would change my tune in 40-degree weather when I have to mow it, or in the wintertime when I have to shovel the driveway. Neither of those things I have to do right now. So I get to sit on my little, 10-foot balcony and enjoy the green trees and the peace and quiet in the backyard. But I definitely like the idea of having some land, if that makes any sense. I'm not sure why I have that, appeal in my brain to owning like a chunk of land to do stuff with, whether it's put up a play structure, whether I'd love to grow some vegetables, like I'd love to have more herbs and, stuff like that I think like proper vegetables. But it would be nice to
Mhm.
have space to do that because I mean, like, I can't really do it on the balcony. I could, but like between the patio set and the barbecue, there's no other room for anything else out there without tripping over it every time you go out. So it's one of those
Yeah, I
things that I've
think
put up on the back burner.
yeah, like owning land, like I think we both. I'm not familiar with your locale, but I live in a medium sized city, I would say. And it's right outside, well, quote unquote, right outside Toronto. The GTA is getting bigger and bigger as we all know.
Right.
And you don't really feel like you own it. I mean, as someone who grew up in the country on a farm, you really felt like you owned it because your closest neighbor was a kilometer away or far enough away that you couldn't see what they were doing, and they couldn't see what you were doing. And that and
Right.
that felt like, my where my parents lived, that felt like you owned land. But in the city, like, and maybe it's because I'm paying the bills now, maybe that's why it feels like I don't. It certainly feels like I don't own it. Someone else owns it. I'm just
You're paying them to own it eventually.
exactly, yeah, it's
Yeah.
like a long-term deal, and hopefully I get to the other side of it. But I think that it's so hard. I don't know whether it's the bills or whether it's the size of the land, but you're so close to your neighbors in town, and we have a decent sized yard, and obviously someone always has a bigger one across the street or whatever. But I think that that feeling of ownership isn't quite there. But it's something about having your own house, your own space, and being able to customize the inside of it to whoever you
That's
see
the other
fit. I
thing
think
too.
that's
Yeah.
that's a big one for me, like when we set up this place and having we put an office in and doing home reno stuff, and we're slowly chipping away at some of the extra stuff as we can or find the time to. So it's I think that's where the land is more like the land feels borrowed, but for some reason the house, the structure, like that's more significant, I think.
And that's being in an apartment now for, gosh, 18 years. Like, it's one of those things where you want to change stuff, but you're like, why bother? I don't own it. Like, it's, because rent around here is just, it just continues to go up, and they do nothing to update the building. And noticing complaints from many of my friends across the board during the pandemic about landlords really not pulling their weight. And things just keep on getting more expensive, and yet they're not doing the things that they should be. So
Mhm.
I think all those things kind of contribute to my wheels turning in that direction. But it's not going to be this year, but it could potentially be, something that I look at in the future. It's always been a goal to eventually not live in an apartment, but like, as an independent artist, like, it's a long term goal.
Mhm.
But eventually, I think we'll get there. Before we get into the meat of the show, we have a short email. Hi, Joel and Ryan. I was wondering if you're going to do an episode on the Umbrella Academy season 2, since it came out today, July 31st. Thanks, Tyler. Tyler, thanks for writing in. We don't get a lot of email, and I would love for people to write in more. So if you got questions or comments or responses to things that we've talked about in the show, it's thecitadelcafe@gmail.com. Super easy to find. It's also on the website, thecitadelcafe.com. But to respond to Tyler, I didn't get past the third or fourth episode of the first season of the Umbrella Academy. Um, as Brockett and I have mentioned on the show before, I just don't like the anti-hero dirty underbelly of superhero stories. Like, it's just not. I want the Captain America and the Superman stories. That's kind of what I want for escapism in my superhero stuff. Closest I get to gritty is Batman, and he's still doing things for the right reasons and not killing anybody. um, I felt the show was well made. I liked most of the actors in it. I thought the concept of the big dude in prosthetics was really dumb. I didn't like the way that he looked, but everything else, like, I just, at that point, just hire a big actor. Like, just get some monster wrestler, like that wants to break into acting. Get, not The Rock, but because he would have other things going on, but like something like that, someone of that stature. Just get a big, big, big person to come in there and do stuff like that. But the real reason I bailed on the show, and I don't remember the character's name. You might be able to fill me in. But he's come back from the future. He's supposed to be like 70 or 80 in the body of a teenager or something. And he's a
Mhm.
sarcastic little shit that I can't stand. And again, every time he opens his mouth on screen, I want to throw him. and I'm sure that's written intentionally, but I don't. It's not a pleasant. It's not fun for me. Like I just like, I don't need this. I'm just not gonna watch anymore. Um, and that's kind of where I left off. The last episode that I remember distinctly was him talking to a mannequin in a
Mm,
department store, and that's the last I remember. But yeah, like so, I doubt that I will be talking about season two. It may come up on the show. One of my co-hosts might be watching. It strikes me as something that Megan might be into. Have you been watching the Umbrella Academy season two?
yeah, well, season 2 just came out today. Well, as you said, it came out today. I haven't had a chance to boot it up yet, although it's on Ashley and I's list to check out. And I think that we watched the first season, and I think all your points are really they're spot on. Like I think early on in that season, you have to you're getting to know all these characters, and at first glance, all of them are kind of silly, right? They all have their sort of their poking points of like, okay, the kid is just a like as you said, it's just a sarcastic little shit, and then you have the big dude who's like grumpy because he's big, and then you have the brooding Batman, and then you have the drunk, drugged out guy, and it's all very over the top characters, but they're all sort of over top for a reason, and because it's a mystery based show, like there's a mystery going on. They're trying to solve why I think their father figure or their caretaker really had passed away, and what happened there, and I think until maybe halfway or further on, you don't really get explanation for what these characters are going through and why they're acting this way. But then again, I don't know if it really sells it. It brings it back from the brink of where you left off. But for me, I really love the quirky humor and the interesting story, and that the mystery of these all these babies being born with powers miraculously at the same time on the same day, and then this guy like bringing in seven of them, and why is one of them dead, and what's going on here, and I also really love the actor who plays Klaus. He was from the first couple seasons of Misfits, and
Yes.
he's fantastic. So as soon as I saw he was in it, I was like, I gotta watch this all the way to the end because he's in it. No matter no matter how much I dislike or like it, but at the end of the day, I really enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to season two. I think season two is probably going to be along the same notes as season one, and that it's going to start very mysteriously, and then it's going to unravel as it goes. I've heard it's maybe building more on what was going on in the first season, so we'll see that. But I also really enjoyed the two agents that showed up, the bigger guy and the woman.
Oh
They're
yeah.
fantastic.
I remember. At least I remember liking them, but I don't think I watched it long enough. I think they were only in one or two episodes that I recall.
They play a smaller part at the beginning. They're more
Yeah.
mysterious, but as you go, they become more and more involved. But I think again, as that show builds up to its conclusion, all of the characters just get more and more interesting. And what starts as what's this guy with really you never get past the guy with the big prosthetics. He does look ridiculous, and it's
Mhm.
really hard to get past the fact that he's got these huge arms. But then I think once they kind of go into more detail about it, it's like, okay, like I can kind of see why they're doing this. But it's still with everything else looking so fantastic in the show, it is a little odd to have the guy
Yeah, like
walking around with
it felt like an
Hulkbuster arms.
yeah, it does. It felt like an odd choice. So Tyler, if you're curious, episode 306 of the Citadel Cafe is when we talked about Umbrella Academy. It's the title of the episode is Dragon Prince 2, but the Megan did watch the Umbrella Academy, and I might have had episode or two under my belt at that point, but if I did, I can assure you I probably had the same opinion that I did this week. It probably hasn't changed much. Um, Moving into the main, I guess, guts of what we've been up to. As I mentioned, have not been watching much story-based content. I have been attempting to watch some movies here and there, but a lot of it is just stuff that I've been not completing because I've lost interest. So rather than talking about stuff negatively, I thought I would focus on what I have been doing, which has basically been a lot of Satisfactory. I mentioned this on the podcast a few weeks ago, and I've really been enjoying streaming and playing Satisfactory. You can check that out at twitch.tv/Joel Duggan. I've been doing at least a couple streams a week. They're usually 2 to 4 hours, depending on how much time I have. More than likely, they're around three. But we're at an interesting point in the game, and I try to explain what I'm doing. There's been a lot of new people to the stream that are like, "What's this game?" Because I'm usually known on Twitch for contributing Minecraft content, and so people that are used to Minecraft are just like, "This isn't Minecraft, Joel. What are you doing?" And so I've been taking the time to explain the game, and in the process, it's kind of like a neat exercise for me because I'm not so steeped in the game. It's not my fourth or fifth playthrough. It's only my first real playthrough. I played Update 2 until Update 3 came out and changed the game completely, and then I started over again. So from March, when I rebooted everything and started anew, all of the game has basically been new to me. So over the last 6 months, I've been learning, and it's a good test of my knowledge when someone asks questions about how do you do this or how do you get to there, that sort of thing. But I'm getting to the point now where I'm experimenting with trains in the game, which is really neat because they're huge structures and ginormous tracks and big kind of hauling a lot of material around. And I'm at this really deep planning phase for what will be a very large factory build. And talking with chat the other night, where I decided to name the build and anything that we are allowed to name in the game. I'm basically going to name it after 80s Transformers. So we're looking at Devastator as this main factory themed to like neon green and purple. Like it's just going to be over the top, kind of like 80s um, cartoon stuff, which is going to be great. But it got me thinking about all the different Transformers and Transformer names that you could apply to a sci-fi factory game. And it's really cool because you got like Metroplex, you've got Omega Supreme, you can call one of the trains like Optimus. Like there's all these different things that require like locations and things that for us to understand the environment. So it's going to be a lot of fun to handle that. But in the process of a very busy work week and this thirst for satisfactory, I have been watching a couple of streamers. They're new to me, but they've been around for a little while. And I'll give a general warning now that there is some adult language in their streams. It's not over the top. It's not every other word, and that's why I hung around. Because like a spider jumps out from nowhere, someone drops an F-bomb. Like that's fine. That doesn't
Mhm.
bother me at all. But a lot of my audience on stream is family friendly because of Minecraft, so I always try to kind of give a heads up. Hey, I would rate these two streamers as teen streamers, like high school age. If you're high school age or if your kids are high school age, it's going to be fine. It's not going to be worse than anything they've already heard at school. um, but the first is Wolf Machina. It's WOLFMACHINA. He is a variety streamer. He's in the UK. I believe he's Australian, but he's definitely living in the UK. He is a variety streamer with very chill streams, high level of chat interaction, really welcoming community. Currently working his way through a game library of over 600 games, streaming, also painting and model making. So like painting miniatures and stuff for tabletop gaming. I haven't caught one of those streams yet, though. I really want to because as an artist, those kind of are a neat idea. Recently, mostly playing Satisfactory. He did play Grounded briefly the other day because that game just came out. Grounded looked awkward to me. I have no desire to play that. But what I liked so much about Wolf's streams is that he streams 5 days a week, not Monday to Friday, but like he streams on weekends and takes like Tuesdays and Fridays off or something. But it's just this 8 hour stream. He does the whole day and it's super chill. He just kind of does whatever he's supposed to do. He takes a short lunch break. I kind of would be. I think he should take a longer lunch break. Take care of yourself, Wolf. He takes like 10 minutes and goes and grabs a snack or something and then comes back. But it's really relaxing and it's there's a lot of really cool people in chat. The conversation flows. It's usually about the game, but it doesn't always have to be. And it's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the stream. And what I liked so much about Wolf Machina is that the way that he um, presents his stream when someone new comes in, he's basically doing this because there's a lot of people working from home, because there's a lot of people potentially stuck at home with the COVID-19 things going on in various degrees of severity around the world. And he's just like, if you just want to come here and chill and lurk, that's awesome. If you just want to come in here and chat and or get a distraction or whatever, have like a office background noise. So I've been using it actually the last week where I've been working a lot and just kind of leaving it on in the background. And to have someone that streams for that length of time is really cool because then I don't have to look for a new stream every 2 hours. It's actually really quite cool. And of course, because he's playing Satisfactory a lot, I'm learning a fair bit. He's playing with a few mods, as is, I believe, Max the Catfish, who is my other streamer that I'm going to recommend. Again, adult language, but not forced on you. It's just if it's in context. Also, some adult subject matter in terms of just like different different social situations, that kind of thing. But it's never inappropriate. It's just kind of like things that are just beyond the average, say, 12-year-old. I would say high school age again. But with Max the Catfish, he is again a variety streamer, but really focuses a lot on satisfactory gameplay, especially tips and tricks. What I liked so much about Max the Catfish is that if you're new to Satisfactory, he tries to do spoiler-free tips. So while he might be working in the game with like trains and nuclear power or something like that that you're not used to, if you've got a question about something and he's got the time, he will very often take the time to explain it. And I thought that was really cool because he's in the game and he's got visuals aids to do that, and he'll just take the time to do some little tutorials and stuff, which I thought was really
Hmm.
neat. It helps, and it's better obviously if he's working with trains and you have train questions. Well, that's less of a it's not out of his way to just like lay a couple tracks down and show you how they work and that sort of thing. But it was really cool. He's very clear. He's very well spoken, and very clear in his communication, and but also fun. Like there was one of the channel reward points in his chat was like pit check, and he's going through a heat wave the same as everybody else in the northern hemisphere right now. And if you redeemed enough channel points, basically he had to check to see whether he was sweating. It was just he's got a camera, which it was one of those silly things where it's just kind of like pulling back the curtain, like, yep, sweaty mess here too, streaming, having fun, but I'm hot, like it was really transparent, I guess, and just kind of poking fun at all the normal, bullshit we all have to deal with in the summertime, and I thought it was good. But also kind of late game, but very knowledgeable, and does kind of like suggest, or at least let you know that it's an adult community, but it's a supportive, positive community with like real talks, good vibes, and he does 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So we'll have links to those in the show notes. I would encourage you guys to check them out. Might want to have headphones handy if you're listening in mixed company, but again, just good quality content, really laid back. None of this over the top screaming stuff, and no silly like chat makes the monkey dance things. There's some fun little things like Wolf, and it freaked me out the first time he did it. He has a voice changer. It just happens to be something that was built into his mixer. And so for enough points or enough of I think I remember it's a sub or it's a donation or bits or something like that. I can't remember what it was. But basically he switches his mixer and makes himself sound like a woman.
Oh,
And
interesting.
it's actually remarkably good. Like you're just like, oh my god! Like it just, who I was like, because I went to go get a cup of coffee and I came back, it's like, what is going on? And then when it switched back, it's like, oh my god, that was actually really well done. And the other modes are a little bit easier to tell that it's a digital thing, making like a growly voice or something silly. But the female voice for 3 minutes was amusing to say the least. I can understand why people do it, for the kick. But yeah, so that's my contribution this week. Just a couple of really good Twitch streamers. It's I again have been watching content that I can just walk away from or have on in the background and have no real stakes in lately, and I don't
Hmm.
know exactly why. It's just that's kind of what I've been in the mood for.
Yeah, no, it's I think that's always for me personally, I think Twitch came around a little late for me, is that I think there's just so much other structured content that I want to consume, that having unstructured content that you can walk away, that sounds delightful. To me, that's like children's programming now, where I can walk in and be like, "Oh, okay, you're watching Paw Patrol. Great, I'll catch 5 minutes and then I'll walk away." And I know exactly what happened when I came back, even though I
Yeah,
didn't see it. But I think, yeah, I just think there's so much going on for me in terms of content that I struggle to sit down and watch. like a Twitch stream, even though I know how relaxing it would be to just stop. And I think occasionally I'll find myself going to YouTube and watching some of my subscribed channels, but even the structured content there that I used to watch and love has sort of transformed into what Twitch basically is, which is a sort of a stream of conscious, just kind of like, here's a game, I'm playing it, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I think I could get back to Twitch. I'm not really into the sort of I don't know if I should call them like treadmill games, kind of where you're constantly moving forward, you're constantly doing a thing, you're trying to build a thing, and there's just more to do. And Satisfactory, that it's not a bad thing. It's just one of those, I don't play a lot of those games.
Yeah, with
But
Satisfactory,
yeah.
I'd say it's the what's got because I don't really like those games either. I catch on real quick where it's just like, ugh, I'm just kind of like beating my head against the wall for no good reason.
Mhm.
What I like about Satisfactory, and I will probably hit a wall in Satisfactory when I reach the end of the tiered content, like once you actually get through all the different things that you can attempt to make. And so, I mean, I like building games. I mean, I play Minecraft a lot, so like that's not news to anybody, I don't think. And that's something that I think Satisfactory balances really well. It's got the creative point where you can basically build whatever you want with the parts that they provide. There's actually a really rich modded community. I haven't dug into it yet because I'm still playing the vanilla game, but the modding stuff is really good for people that want to build like more like create art with the game as a tool as opposed to actually play the collection resource management part of it. What I like about it though is that it's a puzzle game, and that's where it kind of gets me. Where it's like, okay, you need to make the thing to unlock this other thing,
Mm.
but how do you do it, and where do you get the resources, and how do you break down the math so that it all works out?
So
Uh,
there's structure to it. It's got goals.
yeah,
That's
and because it's what I like so much about it is that it starts you off really slowly. Like the tutorial is really good. It's got a sense of humor like Portal. So
mhm.
this
Oh,
digital assistant will walk you through consuming the planet for the Fix-It Corporation, and you know, little things like if you fall from too high, you will damage Fix-It property. Please don't do that. It's not. Who cares about you? The expensive equipment you're carrying, though, please don't damage that. So it's got like humor like that, which I find really fun. And so it's a little bit overwhelming sometimes for people coming into my streams because I'm a couple hundred hours into the game. Only because I stream it, I don't really have a lot of time to play it off stream. But um, in that regard, I've learned a lot and there's a lot built. So people are like, "Whoa, my gosh, what is going on?" But like when you start in the game, you've got nothing. You walk out of a drop pod and you've got a couple of parts in your backpack and that's all you got. And you start off by building, a belt and a machine, and it kind of walks you through the rest. And I quite liked it. It was a fun experience to learn it. And the appeal to me, I think, is that it's got a bit of an adventure map going on too, where you don't have to build in the same place. So like if you want to play the game again, it's I guess in a way like Minecraft, where like if you decide to start a new world, it's all randomly generated. It's like it's not going to be anything like the world that you currently played in or the last experience. So it's got that kind of appeal. But again, like if you don't like those kind of games, if you don't like the games where you're just kind of like building and going through tech trees and stuff like that, then it might not be for you. Um, but
hmm. I
it's
love the developer is Coffee Stain Studios, and
yes,
they made a couple games that I really liked, which was Sanctum and Sanctum 2, which was a first person tower defense s game where you'd build mazes and monsters with, well, robots would kind of come through. And the second one was co-op, and this was kind of their follow-up. They've got a couple games that they've got out that are, streamer games, right? Like Satisfactory, and I think Deep Rock Galactic is another one that
yeah,
they're also working on or affiliated with. So I really like the developer, and I think Satisfactory's always stood out to me. But I know, like, for me, I, I would find it hard to focus on it. I'm always jumping between games and
yeah.
constantly looking at the new thing, and it's tough to stick with a game that people can play for such a long period. That's why Minecraft has been tough, right? It's one of those things where I know I'll get back around to it probably once the kids are a little older, because they're already experiencing interest in video games, and I think building in Minecraft will be something that they're into eventually, and it sounds better than letting them play Fortnite. But Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that, but, and, you know, Grounded was another one you'd mentioned. It's that one's early access right now, I think, and it's a Microsoft published title, from I think it's Obsidian Studios, and it's a I think it's like a 4v1 maybe, or like a co-op game where you're trying to escape. I think you fight. It's like Honey, You Shrunk the Kids or something. It
Yeah,
looks interesting.
what I saw, it was really cartoony, but with some very cartoony violence. Like you're attacked by bugs, and so larvae and spiders are like the size of dogs and horses because you're so small. And so the insects in Grounded are large and aggressive, and you've got like a rock tied to a stick, for a weapon. And there's a lot of like green goo when you squish them and everything. It gets gross, and they make terrible noises and things like that. And the impression that I got, that it was very similar to, I want to say, like No Man's Sky.
Mhm.
Like you walk around, you collect leaves, you collect dirt, you collect stuff. You're supposed to grow things, but when Wolf Machina was playing it, it was he wasn't being super hard on it because it was early access, but he was just like early with an asterisk access. He's like, there's a lot of stuff here that's just not working. Like it didn't seem like he was able to figure out how to play. It wasn't really giving him much in terms of a story. Um, but there was a little robot guide, and I couldn't quite hear because again I was working, but it sounded like it might have been the same voice actor that does Claptrap, or at least meant to mimic that kind of a thing.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
yeah. And it's funny. That's something else. I own Borderlands 3. I bought it on the Steam sale recently, and I haven't played it yet. So it's talking about games that are on your list that you kind of want to bounce back and forth between. Eventually, I will be in the mood, probably, if Satisfactory gets frustrating, or if I just want to change a pace to check out Borderlands 3. So I'm looking at that too. But I mean, that's it for me. What have you been up to?
Well, it's in terms of streaming and whatnot. It's been I'm coming to the conclusion that owning cable is something I don't really need, and it goes back to time that I have to watch content and my enjoyment of structured content. So I'm sitting here, and since the pandemic started, Ashley and I have been watching new streaming content, but also catching up on stuff that we've missed on our streaming platforms. And I'm looking at the cable box and I'm looking at the PVR and upcoming recordings, and there's nothing. And with the pandemic, I'm sure the fall will be also next to nothing, which is usually when we get more of our shows back that we like to watch on sort of basic cable.
Right.
So I'm kind of sitting here and I'm looking at my internet TV bill and I'm thinking to myself, like, we really don't need this, even if it is a quote unquote deal. There's no point in spending even less, like just less money on something you're not using. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm so close to just calling and at least downgrading to the very bare minimum because of the pain in having to send the box back and then ask for it back when you want to resubscribe, and then they charge you a bunch of money just to resubscribe. Like there's still shows that Ashley wants to watch that I want to watch that is it's just easier to have cable to PVR them, right? It's worth the effort.
Well, I
But
feel
like,
too that depending on what you're watching, and I know that the last time we talked about this, I think you were using your cable subscription to upgrade to HBO during Game of Thrones, like when that was
mm,
on.
yeah,
You can do
well,
that
no
through
need for
Crave
that
now.
anymore.
No, you can do that. Well, but so Game of Thrones over now, but like Crave is now how I consume stuff that's on HBO when I want to. I'll just
Mhm.
subscribe to Crave for 2 months, consume the show, and then bail when I can. And that's the great thing. There's no box, and when you cancel, it's automatic. Like you could potentially subscribe for a month of any of these services, cancel the next day, and it says, okay, on the 31st of the month or the 27th or whatever it is that you signed up, your subscription will just run out and will not auto renew. So you could do it all in 24 hours, sign up for a month and just decide, whether or not you want to keep it. But do you guys have the Disney Plus?
We do. Yeah,
Yeah.
we have Disney Plus, and that brings the other point is that the kids, we used to, so on Saturday mornings I would do Saturday morning cartoons, and I would say to them like, "Oh, let's go watch cartoons." And we watch it, and they're interested in the commercials, but then they're also like, "Why did the show stop?" Because they're so used to watching Netflix. And I honestly prefer Netflix in the sense I've heard horror stories about, not necessarily horror stories about YouTube, but like this need to watch YouTube, and
Mm-hmm.
it's the content is what the content is, but it's not curated, and it sounds like it's more effort to make sure the kids are watching kids programming on YouTube. So I'd prefer they just, I load up Netflix, and now with Disney Plus, I load that up as well, and they can watch a new show every day if they want to, because there's just so much content there, and their bar for quality, obviously, as kids, it's not very high.
Mm-hmm.
Although you'd be surprised, most of it is pretty good. I remember shows. There was like two good shows when we were kids, and now, like, all of it is like, the bar is much higher. Like, it's
Oh,
not
absolutely.
great,
Yeah,
but
because they're competing with more, right? Like they're competing with
mhm.
other platforms. Uh,
Yeah, so I mean, the kids won't even watch TV. So, I'm just sitting here thinking like, okay, at what point do we at the very least call Bell and say, "Hey, we wanna cut this down to the bare minimum." Like, it's just a matter of thinking like, okay, how much do we save by doing that? But because by obviously paying for the higher package, and this is the weird backwards part about it, the more money you pay for a package, the more you save, right? Whereas
yeah.
if you go down to the base package, sure, the rate is the lowest, but then you lose all your discounts because you're paying for the thing they have been mandated to give you by the government, but don't want to give you. So they give you zero incentive to switch to it. You're almost better off spending the extra $5-10 a month on top of TV just to have the premium package, right? So it's I hate it. I'm almost like I don't want to call them about it. I almost just want to keep paying for it because I don't.
You know what you should do is that you should call customer retention and just
Mhm,
make a big noise like you're looking to switch to a different provider and whatever, and you really don't use cable anymore and see what they could do, because very often you'll end up with, like, their 3 month promotion on just internet deal or something like that. I've been an internet only subscriber for years. I cut the cord a long time ago. And I mean, granted, I don't have kids, and it's only me in the house, and so it's not a lot to worry about. But I have been able to consume just about everything that I wanted to, with the exception of Game of Thrones. It was the only thing for the longest time that I just did not have access to because Crave wasn't a thing. But the
mhm,
only time that I'll run into a problem now, because I've got Amazon Prime, and I buy it for the shipping and so I can use Amazon and get stuff I need. But the benefit, of course, being that I can do Prime Video. And the movies on Prime Video are very often newer and better than what Netflix gets. Netflix originals are good. I pay for Disney Plus. I don't use it that much, but with all of the Avenger content on there now, like, it's just, you want to watch a good movie. You want one of those feel good Friday nights where you've seen Captain America: The Winter Soldier a bunch of times, but you know what? It's a darn good movie, and I'm gonna watch it again. Like stuff like that. Just having that at your fingertips is if you watch 2, 3 pieces of content a month from Disney Plus, it's worth the $9. You know,
mhm.
and
Yeah,
if you got kids, I mean, gosh, it's my God. I mean, pennies on the days that the kids are watching Disney Plus. So there's enough out there, I think, to be able to capture probably most of what you guys are missing, unless you like reality TV. If you like reality TV or sports, you're kind of still SOL.
yeah, I'm not into sports, but,
Well, sports isn't really happening.
that
It
that
sort
too.
of is, but not really.
Yeah, Ashley likes American Idol and Big Brother, sort
Mm,
of.
mm-hmm.
So those are shows that you kind of have to a certain extent. I mean, I think you can get global through Amazon has a thing like it's like Stack TV or something. There are more and more ways, and I think we wouldn't miss it. We'd miss it initially, and then we would get over it.
You
There's a
just find
couple of
other ways.
shows.
Yeah, you're not going to
Yeah,
be resourceful until you paint yourself in a corner.
I'm close. I think I'm getting there, and I'm at the point where, personally for me, I'd almost really like the ability to stop watching
Mm,
like a bunch of shows because it's
yeah.
just there's too much,
Yep.
and we fall behind, and then it itches at the back of my brain. But we have been watching. We started going back to Amazon Prime a little bit because we pay for the shipping as well, but we've had the video stuff, and we just haven't really watched it enough. And there are some good shows there. And recently we watched Upload, which was a show from the showrunner from The Office, Greg Daniels, and it's sort of a dark humor. If Black Mirror was more trying to be more funny, I suppose, in that it's about the concept of the uploads is that when you die, you get scanned into this digital afterlife, and uh you pay a subscription fee to be there. So this story is basically about this guy who he dies, and then his girlfriend at the time scans him into the upload service, but is paying for it because she's a Lakeview family, so they pay for the high class digital afterlife. So they put him in there, and he and he's sort of running around trying to figure it out. And really, like the first few episodes, in their world it's not, but in our world it's a little morbid because you're seeing these people running around. You're like, oh, these folks are all dead, and then it's all about this customer service agent who's interacting with these uploads to make sure these digital consciousness are happy in their. I'm doing a lot of quotations here, like happy in their afterlife. Like, it's all digital, but they sell it in a way where because they scan and they're reproducing your consciousness, and they're reproducing your thoughts as if it was you making those thoughts. Like they come right up to the line and saying like that it really is you in there, but obviously it's still a digital representation of what you were. I guess I
Right.
don't know. It's really interesting. It's got a great story, and it's not just, oh, what wacky what wacky stuff are we going to get into? There's a bit of mystery to it, and there's and you learning more about this world where, again, everything in that world that's happening is normal to them, but to us it's like this is like near future stuff where you could see 30 years down the road something like this happening. So it's really interesting. Ashley and I both really liked it. I was skeptical. The first episode's tough to get through, but I think once you tough to get through in that it's the concept is hard to grasp, and then as you move forward it gets more and more interesting, and it is quite funny, but you're laughing. It's like, oh man, it's funny, but it's a little like it's funny in the context of the show, but if you bring it into our world, it's like, man, that's really morbid.
It's really dark. Yeah.
But it works. It works.
I've only seen trailers for it, like ad rolls before, pre rolls before watching Amazon content.
Mhm.
But it seemed good. Like it seemed like a pretty solid concept. It reminded me a little bit of The Good Place.
Yes. Yeah. It's a little bit like The Good Place in that, yeah, it's got that humor to it, and it's a little more pointed than The Good Place. I thought The Good Place was more like cheerier in its humor when it came
Well,
to,
and Good
death
Place
and
is
heaven and hell.
NBC, right? It's also
Yes. Yeah, this
regular
one's got
television.
a bit more edge to it, but, like, another thing that kinda feels a little, again, in their world, perfectly normal, but in our world, it's a little morbid because you can, as an upload, you can, like, call your friends in the real world on your phone and have, like, a video conversation with them, like, you're dead, but the person you're talking to who is alive is basically like, talking to this person as if it's completely normal, but I'm sitting here and my mind's just like, "What? This is this is in this day and age, it would be, yeah, it'd be insane." But they obviously put it forward in the future enough that you get past that world has already gotten past a lot of those like moral conundrums of doing what they're doing, but it's really interesting, and a lot of that stuff they play with it very they play with it in a way that makes it funny and plays with your expectations of, like, the guy goes to his own funeral. He's up on a big screen and he's sitting there, like, and he's saying hi to everyone at his funeral, and it brings a whole new meaning to celebration of life because you've got the dead person walking around on the screen, and it's funny, but
Yeah.
again, like, I think it's worth checking out if you like the Office feel. Greg Daniels, I really like what he does, and it's worth checking out if you can stomach this kind of stuff right now, because again, it is about a bunch of people being sent to the digital afterlife.
I find it hard to get into comedies that I like. They're usually too low bar for me, like low hanging
Mhm.
fruit. I think the last time I really enjoyed watching a comedy where I was binging episodes to catch up was like Community. I think that was the last one.
Okay.
I really enjoyed Troy and Abed. Like I just
Yes, me too.
those guys were pretty good. The later seasons of the Community got a little bit convoluted, and I wasn't a big fan. But the first two or three seasons, like I was, yeah, first two for sure, I was like on board. And it's been a long time since I've watched anything like that. That was that would catch me. So I might check this out because are they hour long episodes? Are they half an hour? Like what's the
They are short. They're about a half hour, which was
right?
perfect
Cool.
for Ashley and I because it was like
Yeah.
we could watch a whole one without being like, oh man, like there's just 20 minutes left, but it's like 10:30 and
Yeah.
baby's gonna be awake in like an hour and a half. We should really go to bed.
Yeah. That sort of thing. Yeah.
um, but it was good. We could watch like one and a half to two each night, and we kind of watched it straight through, and we really enjoyed it. And it was we're comedies aren't as prevalent on streaming services, I find, at least the ones that we really enjoy. And this was one of those where we're like, we really need a comedy, and this was the one that kind of stuck. But right after we finished that, we moved into Tales from the Loop, which is another Amazon Prime Video exclusive, and this was one that I really wanted to watch, but again, because of the amount of time to devote to this, I usually, if there's a TV show I'm watching, outside of a couple exceptions, I'm gonna watch it with Ashley. So we watched the first episode and I was really like, this is probably one of those that I'm never gonna watch because Ashley's probably not gonna be into it because it's very high concept sci-fi and mysterious, but it's sort of like an anthology show based in this world, but it really is all connected in a way. Like you're experiencing different character stories each episode, but they're all connected in that, oh, that's the guy from the previous episode who's tangentially, connected or in the
Mm-hmm.
background sort of thing. But it's basically, it's a whole series, and you'd probably dig this as an artist. It's a whole series based off of a series of concept art. And it's really cool. And I'm about a couple episodes in, but it's very mysterious, and it takes itself very seriously, but the stories it presents are really really interesting. And Ashley's been digging it, I think, mostly because of the mystery type stuff going on.
What I liked
So
about it,
yeah.
because I've watched the first two episodes,
Oh, cool.
yeah, we talked about it back on episode 356 of the Citadel Cafe. Didn't get into too much because we spent most of the episode talking about Onward, the Pixar film.
Oh, okay, cool.
But I touched on it because I was like, hey, this is cool and I'm enjoying it so far, kind of thing. I found that it's really good, but it's dark sometimes, not about
Mm-hmm.
like death. It's dark emotionally, I think,
Mm-hmm.
is what like it's a kind of not even a sad show. It's more like a melancholy show,
Yeah,
you
I think
know?
I felt that, especially the second episode.
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I'm not going to spoil it, but the
Yep.
second episode definitely has that moment of like, oh, it's almost creeping up on the Twilight Zone, and that
Yeah.
it's trying to send a message, but there's no message. It's just a story, and they're like, oh, and the twist is, And I'm watching it, and I'm Ashley and I are experiencing this, and it's like, man, like it really feels like this world, even though it's got these weird and wacky science fiction things going on, doesn't care about its people that inhabit this town. Like it's kind of odd, and to the point where the town doesn't care that the town doesn't care about the people who live in it. Like they're all just kind of living it and being like, yeah, I'm gonna go. It's kind of cultish. Like I'm gonna go work at the loop. It's like, oh, I'm not smart enough to work at the loop, so I'm gonna work at the quarry, and and that's kind of the tone that is set there, and that like everyone's on this path that they
Yep.
have to do, and this weird and wacky stuff is happening all around it. And and yeah, the 3 or 4 episodes that I've watched, it's all really been that. Like it's something like some sort of object, some sort of experience that's that's happening in this town, maybe tangentially related to this loop or not. It's hard to tell, but it's all sort of happening around this place where they're doing these experiments and stuff. And it's just like it's a necessary risk of living in this town that does all the work at the loop. So it's you don't get a lot of like outside world. You get the sense that really all that matters is this town and the loop, right? It's very
Yeah.
weird. It's
Yeah,
very isolated.
it's set like post-apocalyptic or like post-World War II, and it went very differently sort of idea. It's
Yeah.
based on artwork from what's the guy's name? Simon Stellenhag, and
Mm.
the role-playing game called Tales from the Loop.
Oh, I didn't
yeah,
know it was a
yeah,
role-playing
yeah.
game.
It's a tabletop game. It's like, sort of like a D&D sort of situation.
Oh.
But and the feeling that I get in that, in the same way that in Dungeons and Dragons you go up against like opponents, like there's monsters, like you have to fight something like a troll in a cave or something like that as part of your adventure. In Tales from the Loop, the enemy, so to speak, is the environment. Like it's not a thing. It's where you are. That's the problem, and that is the source of the problems that you as an adventurer are going to have to face. And apparently, in the role playing game, you get to you basically you play a kid. Like you play one of four different types of kids. Like there's the sporty kid or the adventure kid or the nerdy kid. Like they have it all broken down, and
Mm.
so it sounds really cool. But I love the like broken down feature tech. Like it's like
Mhm.
there might be a robot, but it's like a rusty robot. Like it's just it has some weird sort of um will say like highbrow sci-fi. Like it's very high concept in a way, but artfully done. And something that I'd love to hear what you guys think about it is I loved the music. Have you
Mm.
guys kind of picked up
Yeah,
on the
it's,
music at
the
all?
music's very, like, it's low key, but it works
Yeah.
when they bring it in and when they really use it to that effect, and I mean, um,
It's
it's
beautiful,
yeah,
but
I really
like
like it.
beautifully sad. Like
Mm.
it really helps with the emotion of whatever episode that you're watching.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I think, again, it's so surprising the amount of quality they're putting into these streaming services,
Yeah.
and I think that's where when you look at cable, it's like before cable was ahead and cable had all these shows that they were producing and they're high quality, but now streaming has caught up and exceeded, right? And you're kind of like, man, if I only have a certain amount of time, and Apple TV and Amazon and Netflix and Crave and um, Disney Plus, they're all knocking it out of the park. It's like, well, I mean, you might as well go where you've got maximum quality, and I
Quality
think
and
with
creative
Amazon
freedom,
Prime,
right? Like you don't have to answer to
yeah,
advertisers. Like you want to put out a show like Upload, and if
mhm,
it ruffles some feathers in whatever community dealing with the afterful, like you don't, NBC doesn't get hate mail. Like you just, if
yeah.
you don't like it, don't watch it. Like it's that simple. Don't pay for the service and don't watch it.
I mean,
It's
Amazon gets tons of hate mail, so I mean, they could just put it
yeah,
in the bucket,
yeah,
right?
but
Like
that's
it's
you and now as a streaming content consumer, you have choice. Like there's a lot of choice. It's not just Netflix. Like they're still like one of the biggest ones in the room, but there are definitely things where I run into choice paralysis, where I'll spend 45 minutes of my Friday night trying to decide what to watch, rather than spending an hour watching a show. I'll just be like, God, I don't know what I'm in the mood for, because I've got Amazon, I've got Netflix, I've got Disney Plus, and then on top of it, all that, I've got YouTube and Twitch. Although that's not normally my Friday night. But yeah, it's one of those things where you do have a lot of choice, and each one of these platforms, Netflix and Amazon in particular, with their back catalogs of older films that you maybe not have seen, or older shows, like it's a lot of stuff, and
mhm.
they all try to and fail to recommend what they think you're in the mood for. It's never right. But if you know what you're looking for, I find too, like popping onto websites, like what's new in streaming this month. Oh well, Netflix has got this, and this, and Amazon Prime has got this, that, and the other thing, and then the rest of it is usually beyond a copyright wall in the states that we can't access. But there's a lot of choice out there, which is cool. I'm glad that you found Tales from the Loop. I keep on meaning to go back to it, but the third episode struck me as potentially very sad, and I was like, I don't know if I want to get into this right now. It was like I got into it, and then the pandemic kind of hit, so it's just like I don't know if
Yeah.
I'm in the mood for this show. It's a good show, highly recommend, but I have to be in the right mood to get back to it. But when I do want some more story content, I did find them very like relaxing, but also engaging. Like you
Mhm.
kind of had to pay attention, um, but it wasn't stressful watching them. Like they don't
Mhm.
stress you out, but they just emotionally affect you and they make you think. And if you're not in that kind of
Yes.
a mood, then maybe not the show. Maybe Upload is the show that if you're not in the mood to think too hard and looking for a lighter evening.
Yeah, I think, Tales from the Loop is one of those things where we're sort of watching it in awe as you're seeing this world and these, high sci-fi technology sort of going back and forth, and really fantastic acting even from the kids.
Very good.
Um,
Yes.
and that's the thing, like, I almost feel like we can't say like, "Oh, the kid acting is great." It's like, I actually think, maybe it's not the kids, maybe it's the directors, maybe it's the support staff on hand, like, they're just it's so much better now.
Hmm.
Obviously, I'm sure there are tons of examples of bad kid acting, but, I really think it's fantastic in Tales from the Loop. They really nail it, and, yeah, that 3rd episode, I could see being one where you jump out. I think a good comparison is, like, a high sci-fi, um, uh oh, I had it. What was it? Twilight Zone.
Yes.
It really feels like that. So yeah, no, I'm enjoying it. And you mentioned the music, and it's one of those things where it's really popping. I've actually been spending the last week or so. At times, kind of weird, but I found a sound bar on sale, and it's a Sony one. It's a 2.1, and because again, we don't need anything too crazy, and I don't like it's a Sony soundbar, but like you go above like just the bare minimum, and those get really out of hand
Yep.
from a pricey point. But I've always wanted a soundbar because again, like a lot of people say, like if you're listening to audio outside out of the TV, it's not the best experience, right? Obviously, a lot of folks are the hardcore audio folks are just saying, you have a 7.1 surround sound. I'm like, I'm not spending 4 times the amount I spend on the TV on a sound system. But if I can spend, like a couple $100 on a sound bar it's gonna boost the audio a little bit. But that's kind of what I've been doing for the last week is tinkering with this thing, because this is the thing, like I remember when, and this is gonna make me sound like an old person, but I remember when you could buy a TV and you plug the thing into it and it just works. You know, we hit a point where we got to the point where if you plugged it in, it worked, and then you could watch it. And of course, before that, there was a lot of tinkering. But then we got to a point where you could just plug it in and change the input and you're good to go. But then with these new 4K TV sets, which I've had for a couple years, I've had one, there's hundreds of settings, and it all differs on what content you're feeding into it and what subscription you have and what devices you have connected. And then the soundbar, I thought, oh, surely I can just plug this thing in and it'll work. And I made sure I had all the inputs and stuff, but I've just been tinkering with it. And I mean, I know you'll appreciate this or not appreciate it, but I've been really struggling with lip syncing. I feel like it's off on the soundbar, and it's the connection, I guess. It's the way the content's feeding through it.
Yeah.
So I've just been digging through settings, and I have the setting, but now I'm like, I watch an AV sync test thing on YouTube, and it's like, okay, it looks right, but then I play a game or I watch a TV show. I'm like, I don't know, it looks off to me, and it's driving me mad. And I'm playing with like adjustment settings and stuff to try to get it, but
Yeah.
I
It's
don't know.
tough. I don't know whether this will help.
Hmm.
But an old trick from animation days is if you can get the sound, if you're trying to sync it up exactly and you're still having issues, see if there's a setting that might allow you to sync the sound ahead of the video a little bit,
Hmm.
because light travels faster than sound. So when I was animating and doing lip sync and you'd be lining up frames, you'd have the audio digitally in your animation software and you'd be animating mouth shapes. And the trick was to put the mouth shape a frame or two after the sound. So if someone was hitting a B or a P, saying like boat, or Popeye or whatever, then you'd put those mouth shapes, um, put the sound ahead of it or put the shapes after it. So the viewer would potentially hear the sound and see the mouth shape perceptively at the same time. But when you line them up exactly as you would think mathematically in the program, it didn't look right when you played it back. It looked
Hmm.
off because you'd see the mouth shape before you'd hear the noise and process it in your brain. And so it was an interesting kind of thing to learn about the way that all works. But yes, that would drive me crazy. I would have a really tough time with out of sync audio on anything. That's happened to me before, just on Netflix streaming. I don't know whether my Apple TV is on its last days or whether my Wi-Fi connection to it is just wonky or what. But I have had a lot of issues with streaming services. I don't watch much
Hmm.
streaming right now because I'll be watching something and 1 minute it's 1080p and the next minute it's like 480. I was like, why does this look like garbage? Like, this is a sci-fi show. I can't watch this and not look at it. Like, I need to know what's going on. I think I was trying to watch The Expanse and I was like, it's pixelated crap. Like, I can't do it. Amazon seems to be the biggest offender. I'm not sure how their priority works with, their pipelines and stuff, but like, it's been garbage for me for the longest time. And I had another problem with another really good show on Amazon is the Jack Ryan series.
Mm.
I can't remember his name, but he was in The Office.
Oh, well, I almost said
Wow.
Jim. I know it's not
Yeah,
Jim because
he
that's his
played Jim.
character name.
Yeah, he played Jim.
Yeah.
Gosh, I can't
Oh
believe
man.
John Krasinski. John Krasinski.
Yes, John
Yeah.
Krasinski.
Anyway, fantastic in that show. He's so good, but it's like world spy stuff, and like the audio settings would just not show the subtitles, or they would always show the subtitles, or then they would never show the subtitles. Like, the villain is speaking Spanish. I need to know what's going on. And you can't, because it wasn't working. I was like, I'm tired of, and the worst thing was, like, when I would pause the show to change the setting, cross my fingers and hope it worked, when it came back, it would be all pixelated. It's like, well, now it's like, oh, now I'm at like the CIA, headquarters, and they're looking at some radar and pointing at all this important stuff. I can't see what's going on because it's all pixelated. It's like, it was so frustrating. It was just such a pain because it was such a good show. I finished the
Mhm.
first season and I got partway through the second, and the quality, not of the show but of the stream itself, was what was keeping me from completing it. But yeah, when tech is not working right, like, it's rough. I haven't invested in a new TV in a long time. When my other one died, I got a loaner from my parents, and
Mhm.
I don't watch much. And I thought I would miss the big screen, but after a while, you just get used to what you have. And I'd love to have a nice big one for watching Marvel movies and cool stuff like that, but I can't bother to get into it. And in an apartment, a sound bar would be what I would go for. I used to have a sound system, but my amp died a long time ago because it's like 20 years old. But it was great when I had it for things like Lord of the Rings or Star Wars. But I've switched to earphones. Like, I have a decent pair of like gaming headset earphones that I use, and then that
Hmm.
way I can watch, the Avengers kick the snot out of Thanos at 12 o'clock on a Friday night and not wake my neighbors. Like, I can have it as
Yeah.
loud or not as loud as I want. And because it's like right on my ears, I don't have to have it loud, and it's decent sound. I miss the surround. It is really cool to have that kind of a thing. But the subwoofer,
Yeah.
that's always part of surround sound systems. It's not great for apartment living.
No.
If you want
I
to make
mean,
friends
with
with your
three
neighbors.
kids, like it's
Well, yeah, and
we
you
don't.
can't wake the baby either, right? Like, you don't want that to happen. So anyway.
Yeah, so it's been like the thing is with the 4K TV, I set it up and that was like a couple weeks, and then I kind of discovered that I had done it all wrong because there's these like color settings, and it's not wrong, it's personal preference, but they say if you want it to look like I was having trouble with HDR content because all the high-end streaming services offer HDR and you can't really turn it off if your TV will do it. I haven't found a way. They say kind of it's like a forced, it's like it's the superior content, so that's how they're going to deliver it. Um, so we had upgraded Netflix and we watched Extraction, the new movie with Chris Hemsworth, and it was fantastic, but it was really like red and yellow. And I guess I dug a little deeper and it's like, oh, well, there's these settings you can change. So that was like another couple weeks of tinkering. And I think I got it to where I need it. But again, it's just there's so much tinkering. And I think like the more expensive a TV you buy, the less you probably have to tinker because all the settings are kind of tuned. But I'm probably completely wrong. I mean, we bought sort of a mid range, but I got it to where I want it. But now with the sound bar, a lot of people are saying like, oh, you can if there's a way to output from the TV and the sound bar, and you can kind of compare that. I don't think there's a way there, but you can delay it. So it seems like you can delay the audio because what's happening is the TV, the new 4K TVs, they do so much video processing on depending on the content you're watching, they do a lot of video processing, which can delay it from the sound. So the sound's going to the bar fine. And this is just my general understanding. I could be completely wrong, and kind of why I'm putting it out there. Like, if anyone knows a good shortcut, and aside from returning it and going back to just listening to the TV speakers, I don't know if I could do that at this point. But I I mean, as Ashley said, like you're not the first person to buy a sound bar, so I'm sure there's a way to get it working to a point where and it could really be like the lip sync. It could be all in my mind, and that like that you're so used to the speakers on the TV that it's like bouncing off the wall and then to your ear, as opposed to the soundbar it's spitting your sound right at you. So
No,
I
if you're seeing something, especially with the amount of video gaming stuff that you do, I'm
true.
sure that it's something that you're noticing. And the thing is, like, I mean, when you get into tech troubleshooting like that, it's like fixing a computer problem, man. It's like
Mm.
you get into the internet and you search for like these soundbar issues. Well, you're not the only person. You're one of millions of people that have had this problem. With the
But it's kind of like going to
thousands of
WebMD,
oh, I
right?
know,
Because
right? Like just it's everything. It's what it's so it becomes even more frustrating because then you can't find your problem, or even get close to figure out what's going on. Like you can't even figure out what the problem is, for 3 hours of searching online. I have been there. I do
yeah,
not recommend it. So you should
yeah,
throw it in our Discord. Throw it in
I
the
will.
Discord because the Citadel Cafe is full of nerds, and very often I'll find like, oh, I didn't know you were a sound engineer. When you're
That would
talking,
be handy.
when you're talking to people that just play Minecraft and talk about podcasting all day long, then and other things like you get some people that have very different walks of life that they don't necessarily lead that conversation with, right?
Mhm.
But it's very cool. Well, that's going to bring us into the Internet Minute, which is brought to you by you. The Citadel Cafe is 100% listener supported, and I, for one, cannot thank you guys enough, and girls. If you have supported the show, then you're already in the Discord, and you can help Ryan out. If you haven't supported the show, for less than a cup of coffee a month, you can become a member at patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe. And there's a member only Discord, as I mentioned. There is a bonus content whenever we do like extra episodes and things like that. You have access to all that kind of stuff on the Patreon page. So that's patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe. We are holding steady at 21 patrons for the month. Always like to try to add one more person per month. So if you're on the edge and you'd like to help out, then by all means do that. Head over to patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe and check it out. The pick this week is an art pick. So awesome for audio podcasts, but it will be very easy for you to find. Derek Laufman on Instagram, DerekLaufman, did a commission this past week of Michelangelo from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and it's he does a lot of digital work, but this is ink on paper, and I haven't seen a digital commission like this in a long time. He did markers for it, and the only color is the orange of the like elbow pads, knee pads, and bandana for Michelangelo. So it really feels like a modern take on the classic TMNT comics. But then the model is a little bit similar to the cartoons, like Saturday morning Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle cartoons and stuff like that. So great piece by Derek. I've never met him, but we've talked a few times online. We've interviewed him on podcasts before, and he's a really good dude. And he just had a new book come out. So if you go to dereklaufman.com or go to Derek Laufman on Instagram, you will find his work. He's pretty consistent on Instagram too. It's a lot of really cool stuff. So check it out. And if you happen to pick up his new book, tell him I said hi. I have it. I haven't opened it yet. I backed the Kickstarter. It arrived last week, and I just haven't had the time to sit down with a cup of coffee and check it out. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Michelangelo print that he's done that you've linked here is just it's I love see you had your Leo folks, you had your Raph folks, but then there was the Donatello and Michelangelo camp, and I always liked those two. Michelangelo and Donatello, I'd go back and forth in terms of my favorite, but I orange and purple to this day are like two of my favorite colors because of those two. So
Nice.
it's fantastic.
Yeah, I've always liked Michelangelo and Leo. Those are my
Mhm.
two. Michelangelo was always first because he's just the cool, party, goofy,
I
funny
guess he
one.
is the party dude, right? So
Yeah,
he's also
yeah.
up there. I guess Donatello's the the low turtle on the
Yeah, like I
soup there,
and
but
back then, like when we were growing up watching them, they were a little bit more well-rounded. I found that in modern versions, they're very often stereotyped. Like Donatello is like the techie one, and he's very nerdy, and it's like it's fine, but it's that they really kind of go down a very one-dimensional character for
yeah,
Donatello when they could do so much more. He basically becomes like the guy in the chair that gets out of the chair. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
which is nice. They could
Yeah,
keep him in the chair, right? I'm glad that they let
yeah,
him out, but
yeah,
I think the most egregious of the new personality-based turtles is probably Raph. Like he's just the hothead, but they take it to the extreme where he's kind of like he's the worst of the group. He's always the one that's going to screw up because he gets so angry. I'm like, oh,
yeah.
I don't know.
Some
It's
of the designs
unfortunate.
that I've seen, Alistair, a member of the community and friend of mine, is very into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Teenage Mutant Ninja Heroes, as he will be quick to correct you. Um, but sorry, Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. They weren't allowed to call them ninjas in the UK. But he, I always toss him designs when I see these. And recently, when I came across some stuff on Instagram, it was some really cool Ninja Turtle designs where they weren't all the same size. So they drew Raph like a really big dude, and Donatello was really skinny, and then Leo was kind of like athletic and average, but then Michelangelo they made him really short.
Hmm.
So, which was weird. He was like, well, it's not as appealing as a character designer to have a short character, but he was also like it really kind of gave this unique lineup to the four turtles because then they weren't just all the same turtle with a different color headband. You know that they had very different like costumes and stuff. It was an interesting take. I've often wished that I would have more time to do fan art for, old 80s cartoons and do like my own take, my own modern take on some of the designs, some of the stuff that I grew up with. It'd be kind of a fun thing to do. I'd like to try it for Gargoyles. Disney's Gargoyles I was a big fan of that when I was growing up. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Citadel Cafe. You can get more information about the show and links to some of the things that Ryan and I talked about this week at thecitadelcafe.com. Music for the show was composed by Kevin MacLeod, and you can email us at thecitadelcafe@gmail.com, just like Tyler, and get your word in. Please do that. It's fun. You can subscribe for free on iTunes, Android, Stitcher, Spotify, and YouTube. And of course, word of mouth is the easiest way to support the show. It's free. Just tell a friend where they can listen to the Citadel Cafe and what you thought of the show, and hopefully you'll bring on a new listener for us. It's always a great way to make a friend, share a podcast. Leave a star rating or review on the Apple Podcasts app. That is a great way for strangers to find us. The higher we are rated, the more likely we'll come up in a search when someone looks for their latest sci-fi and fantasy topic that they want to listen to a podcast about. My name is Joel Duggan. You can find everything I'm doing online, including my illustration and design portfolio at joelduggan.com. And you can listen to my other podcast, All About Minecraft, at thespawnchunks.com. And follow me at Joel Duggan on social media. Super easy to find. I'm going to point you towards Twitch, which is twitch.tv/Joel Duggan, where I am playing an awful lot of Satisfactory. But tomorrow, we're doing a tour of Infinity Cove, which is my patron server. And we're going to be taking a look around and seeing what's going on because the 1 year anniversary, the server has been up for a year. There's an awful lot of really cool Minecraft content. We're going to be doing that live on Twitch. That's Saturday, August 1st. If you miss it, don't worry. There'll be a VOD. That's at twitch.tv/Joel Duggan. Ryan, where can people find you, your podcasts, and where you hang your hat online?
So you can follow me on Twitter at rmurphy. I'm also on Instagram at Ryan Murphy if you want to check that out as well. I've been posting there more often. And in terms of podcasts, I've got the Gamers In at gamersinpodcast.com. Zombies Ate My Podcast with fellow co-host of yours, Lou, who's a brand new father, which is awesome. So we've I'm trying to make sure he doesn't, watch zombie content in front of his newborn. But I mean, uh, he's, we're at this stage, like they can watch whatever they want. It's not, as long as it's not loud, it should be fine. So he's doing really well, and I wish him the best. And we just recorded a show where we talked about all the Comic-Con at home news about The Walking Dead. And I do another show with Crofton Sears called Dungeons and Diapers, where we talk about geeky stuff, very similar to the Citadel Cafe, but then more from a spin of having kids and having to sort of balance life between wanting to play an incredibly violent game like The Last of Us Part 2, but also make sure we can play it so the kids don't see and we're awake at the same time. So it's about that balancing act. So it's a lot of fun. You can check that out at tgistudios.com/dad.
You've been listening to the Citadel Cafe, where we are fast, easy, and cheap, but you can only pick two.